Hello and welcome to episode 5 of Tales from the TARDIS Podcast. I'm your host Scott Summers, and today is my review of Doctor Who Series 10 Episode 2, Smile. Now, I'm going to be doing a slightly different format for my reviews now, so first of all I'm just going to jump straight in with what I thought of our main characters, our heroes. And the Doctor, loved the Doctor again in this episode. Loved Bill. I'm really enjoying their relationship building together. Almost everything I thought was just great. Then obviously we didn't get a lot from Nardole and Matt Lucas in this episode. I'm starting to see a bit of a tension occurring between Bill and Nardole, and obviously he seems very concerned about what is in this vault, and we just got that little brief little moment at the start of the episode as we again are brought up with the fact of what is in this vault, why is the Doctor there, and obviously that is Nardole's priority. But moving on to what I thought was really good about this episode, I thought the visuals and the visual effects were absolutely stunning when we see this city and this building obviously made out of robots, just everything about it. And then we saw the spaceship and I thought it all looked absolutely magnificent. Again, I loved the Doctor in this episode. It's so refreshing to see him at the start, so full of hope, and then you see his mind work as he goes through the episode, and Bill not being disheartened as the Doctor keeps trying to push her away. She's still excited. It was her first alien world, and she just wanted to explore it, and it was, magnificent. I really enjoyed the emoji bots. I thought it was a really clever idea and concept, and I thought the design was very nice, and the way that their faces would reflect the badges and things like the light bulb when the Doctor had those ideas, I thought was brilliant. I loved the way that there was just a quick little reference to the Doctor having two hearts, and Bill just couldn't quite understand it, and the Doctor just kept trying to skip over it. I thought it was just perfect the way that they just touch on that. And I thought the cliffhanger at the end of the episode was just really interesting, and it's kept me gripped, and really I can't wait now for the next episode next week. It's just so good. A couple of things that I thought weren't quite as good about this story. I'm just not a fan of it happens every time the Doctor gets a new companion, but he always tries to push him out of the way and keep him out of harm's way, when really, especially in this situation, it does help the Doctor to have another pair of hands, another person with him. Although Bill didn't do too much in the overall ending of the story, the fact that she was there talking to him and with him I definitely felt was a bit more crucial. I wasn't quite a fan of the sort of rashness of the humans, the way they were portrayed. Humans always seem to be, in this sort of Doctor Who story, always seems to be portrayed as the shoot first, ask questions later kind. I thought that was a bit too predictable for me. I think it sort of had to happen for the way that they wanted the story to end. I understand that, and I do think that there was a bit of a lack of a plot and story. It seemed there wasn't a lot, and it was sort of stretched over this episode. Maybe, obviously, not every episode is going to be full of plot and best episode ever. So I still thought this was a pretty good episode. And then I just want to touch on a couple of my favourite little references and callbacks that are in the episode. Obviously, we've had the Doctor meeting with various old inhabitants of Earth as the humans have moved on. I mentioned a couple of these in my commentary, but we had Fourth Doctor encountering a group of humans in the arc in space, which I thought was just lovely. It's a great story. I would highly recommend it, from Tom Baker's first season as the Doctor. It's a brilliant one. And then obviously we had the 11th Doctor encountered another group in the Beast Below. The chairs in the TARDIS, which brings me back to another thing of the chairs. There are chairs in the original TARDIS in the first ever episode, An Unearthly Child, with William Hartnell, which reminds me of one thing. One of the I listened to a couple of different Doctor Who podcasts, and something when I listened about episode 1, the pilot, one thing that came out of that which I didn't realise, and thought I just wanted to bring up, listening to This Week in Time Travel, which is a podcast I would highly recommend. It was brought up by one of the people on that podcast. The character of Heather in episode 1 was named that way to create the link of Bill and Heather, which is a callback to Bill Hartnell, William Hartnell, who played the first Doctor, and his wife, up until his death, was a woman named Heather. And when I heard that, I thought that was just a lovely little seed there for Stephen Moffat to plant. Obviously, if you knew that, it made your experience even better, but it was the sort of thing that if you had no idea, like I had no idea until I had heard it said there, didn't affect my appreciation of the episode one bit. Couple of other little references. The Doctor says a line of everything that ever happened or ever will when he's talking about the TARDIS. It's a direct quote from himself from the 11th Hour, talking about the TARDIS, which I thought was just brilliant. And the Magic Haddock, I cannot talk about this episode and not talk about the Magic Haddock. Doctor kept bringing it up over and over again in this story. It seemed to me as a bit of a callback of the Doctor in Heaven Sent, talking about the bird and the tale of the bird, where it keeps cropping up, and then at the end we find out the meaning of the story, and it relates directly to the episode. Obviously, we had the Magic Haddock is essentially a tale of 3 wishes, and the third wish ends up being to undo the first 2 wishes. It's a pressing of the reset button, as I've mentioned in my commentary, and obviously we had a little almost IT crowd reference of have you tried turning it off and on again? Yeah, okay. That does work with a lot of computer problems. And one final thing to mention about the episode before I give my rating. Obviously, I mentioned this at the beginning of the commentary, that we had Mina Anwar with a small cameo role in this episode. Obviously, played Geeta Chandra in the Sarah Jane Adventures. Great to see her back in Doctor Who, even if it was only a very small role. And moving on to my rating for this episode, I would say it was a very good episode for episode 2 of a series. Wasn't anything too fancy, but it was good. It was Bill's first time in the future. It was her first alien planet. So I would give this episode a 7 out of 10. I thought it was a very good episode. Wasn't the best episode ever, but not every episode is that. So that is my review of Doctor Who Series 10, Episode 2. Episode written by Frank Cottrell Boyce, directed by Lawrence Goff. And if you want to contact the show, you can contact me at Tales_TARDIS on Twitter, at Tales from the TARDIS Podcast at gmail.com via email. And please leave a like, comment, and subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. I will be back next week talking about Doctor Who Series 10, Episode 3. I don't even know the episode title. I've kept myself away from that spoiler as of now. So thank you for listening. I've been Scott Summers, and this has been Tales from the TARDIS Podcast.